the bad reputation starting in a Lambrusco can. But at the same time, I want to change this concept. And so I want to fill the can with a premium Lambrusco. And of course, the can is 100% recycled aluminum. It's not heavy like the bottle of the wine. And I'm very close to the nature and to the new organic, new philosophy. And so I want to change this concept about Lambrusco in a can.
Welcome to this special Clubhouse session of the Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as members of the Italian wine community engage in fascinating conversations about contemporary wine topics. If you enjoyed the show, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com and remember to subscribe and rate the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your pods.
Hello and welcome to Clubhouse, the Ambassador's Corner. My name is Carla Ravagnolo and today I'm pleased to welcome Julianne Farricker and her guest Mattia Montanari from Opera 02 Winery. Welcome everybody.
Thank you so much. Buonasera.
Ciao, welcome.
Our pleasure. So Julianne is today's host, but before passing the mic to her, I would like to tell our listeners a few information about her background. So Julianne, also known as Julie for her friends, is an Italian wine ambassador based in Florida, USA. She is the co-owner of the Italian Cellar, where she also serves as the Italian wine scholar and ambassador of cultural experiences. I learned that from the website, Julie. Is that correct? Would you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes. So I'm basically the Italy expert in residence. So I talk about Italy all the time. And then, of course, educate about Italy's culture through travel. And then, of course, that's gastronomy.
Yes. Also because, for those of you who may not know, Julie has visited all 20 regions of Italy, especially focusing on her maternal roots on the island of Stromboli off the Sicilian shores, which sounds lovely. Do you go back often?
Yes, it's actually funny because usually when I visit Opera 02, it's always after I've been to Stromboli. So I visit Stromboli a few times a year. And then from there, I go back to the mainland and then make my way to, the Modena region and then back to Milano before returning to the United States. But yes, Stromboli is like my second home.
Got it. Since you've already mentioned Opera 02, would you like to tell us how did you discover about this winery?
So it's interesting. I had discovered Opera 02 only because I was at the Ferrari Museum in Maranello. This would have been about 2015. And I had gone up to the desk and said, I would really like to have a really nice experience with, typical food and a really good view of the region. Could you make a recommendation? Because I had already gone to the famous restaurants in Maranello, like, Il Cavallino and the other, like Montagna. So the person at the desk was like, well, you need to drive out, about 20 minutes to Opera 02. And once you see the view and taste the food and everything, and it's great for Lambrusco, you'll really love it. So it was a recommendation actually from the Ferrari Museum. And so I drove out there after my visit at the museum and I was hooked. As soon as I saw the hills and then, of course, the meal that I had was amazing, I said, this is it. This is my place.
Was there Mattia there to welcome you? How did you meet Mattia and why did you decide to invite him today?
So I don't remember if Mattia was there the first time because I had been there, that was like an evening. But then when I had noticed that the restaurant, there's also a resort. So there are 8 rooms. So it's basically like a little wine resort. And they also make balsamic vinegar. So when I had noticed that it's a property that you can eat, so you can dine, you can taste wine, you can have balsamic vinegar. And the view of that area, because it's Castelvetro di Modena in that zone, was just amazing. I said, you know what? The next time I come back to Italy, I'm going to come here. So it was probably either the next trip or maybe another one after because I've been there so often. But that I probably would have met Mattia through one of the wine tours because they do, a wine tour of the different wines that they have. And of course, we'll talk about balsamic vinegar. And he probably gave the tour. And that's how I had probably initially met him. But this would have been probably 9 years ago.
Wow. So it's been a very long friendship, if I may say, with Mattia and the winery. One last question, and then I'll pass the mic to you. What do you plan to discuss with Mattia today, and what are the learning objectives that we should expect from this interview?
Okay, so because of the zone that we're talking about today, it's really well known for Lambrusco Grasparossa. And of course, any student of wine who's studying Lambrusco, there's a specific uniqueness to that type of wine in the world of Lambrusco. So Mattia will be talking about his Lambrusco, of course, and then any other native grapes that are utilized in Emilia-Romagna, because at Opera Zero Due, there's also wines made with like Malbo Gentile, so that will be discussed as well. And then if we're in Emilia Romagna, we know that it's a gastronomic capital of Italy. You know, with my roots with Sicily, of course, we're not going to compare Sicily to Emilia Romagna, but when we think about the food and of course the rich pairings that are perfect for Lambrusco, I'm sure Mattia will tell us about some of those too. So we'll all become Lambrusco Grasparossa and pairing masters.
Looking forward to it. Can't wait for your conversation as a big Lambrusco fan. So I'll now mute myself so you can properly introduce your guest.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, Mattia. How are you?
Ciao, Julie. Fine. And you?
I am doing very well. Thank you. So, just a little bit about
Great.
Mattia before I ask you some questions. So, Mattia
Mhm.
Montanari started producing wine 23 years ago. So, that would be 2002. And he's a first generation winemaker, although he actually studied and graduated in economics. Very interesting, as I'm also an economics teacher. It was early on that he decided that he preferred grapes to numbers, and his mission from the beginning at Opera Zero Due from the 2002 has been to elevate and associate Lambrusco with quality and innovation, something which hasn't been done before. So again, thank you for joining us today, Mattia. We just wanted to highlight Opera Zero Due and your Lambrusco and such. So I thought I'd
It's a
ask you some
pleasure.
questions. Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So it's interesting. As I said, I'm an economics teacher and you studied economics. So to go from economics to the wine world, you know, that's quite a jump. So tell us about how you entered the wine world in Italy first.
Yeah. After my degree in economics, I decided to change my vision. So I Opera 02 in 2002 because I grew up in the heart of Lambrusco Hills and in the Lambrusco Grasparossa area. So when I was child, I used to play in the vineyards while my grandmother worked on the vine. So my goal was to promote a new kind of Lambrusco because the in the past the Lambrusco had a bad reputation because massive exportation, massive production, bad production process, and so I want to produce a high quality and organic Lambrusco. So I bought a cowshed 4 hectares of land, start experimenting this new concept.
Yes, and that's really interesting to note that the zone that you live in, because that's why I mentioned Opera Zero Due as one of my favorite spots as well, because
Mhm.
it's such a beautiful view, and it's to me the quintessential postcard of Emilia Romagna, and
Yeah.
that's why it's like a total experience with the Lambrusco wine and such. So again, when we talk about your specific Lambrusco, so what do you think about your, of course, the grape, Lambrusco Grasparossa? What makes that grape so special?
So, the Grasparossa is one of the three main varieties of Lambrusco. There are Salamino and Sorbara, but the Grasparossa is the deep red sparkling. So it's unique all over the world because, it's red and sparkling. So you can combine very different kind of dishes. And so it's red fruits, it's just a little bit tannins and sparkling. So it's very special.
Yes, I noticed the color too. It has some type of like a fleshiness to it. It's almost like a violet, very rich,
Yeah.
very deep. You know, I
The
always
foam
enjoy.
is for me is this violet reflex is amazing.
Yes, it's beautiful, beautiful wine. So then, of course, you talked about the other two Lambrusco grapes. So
Yeah.
when you think about your wines that you sell, so I know, of course, I've tasted all of them over the years.
Yes.
So of
This is
course, there's Opera.
100% Grasparossa.
Yes, the Opera Pura.
Mm-mm.
And then, of
Yeah.
course, you've used, okay, and so Sorbara and Salamino for others. So when we also talk about your other wines that you vinify? Do you use
Mhm.
any of the other native grapes from Emilia-Romagna for some of those wines?
Yeah. So in my farm, I vinify Malbo Gentile and Grecchetto Gentile to make a Pignoletto. Maybe a lot of people may recognize the Pignoletto than Grecchetto Gentile variety. But I make very small quantities of each. So we use only for the our customers in the resort and the restaurant, and not for the export, because we sell 85% of our production outside Emilia-Romagna, but not for the Malbo Gentile and the Pignoletto, because it's very small quantity. So we use only for our resort.
And yes, I've tried those. They're amazing. All the wines are amazing. Love them every single time. And so when we talk about too, especially because this is something that has come up, and I know I've asked other winemakers. So have you
Mhm.
noticed any effects of climate change with your vines? And how do you think you might have to, respond to that in the future?
Climate change is a problem. Means every vintage is every year is really different. So some year we have a lot of rain, some year we don't have rain. So it's not easy right now to produce wines. Not only, of course, in Lambrusco, but I imagine also in all the Italy too. And so it's not for nothing easy. Of course, sometimes we prefer to have a harvest at the beginning of September, sometimes at the end of September, sometimes in the middle of August, because of course the rain and the sun, of course, change all the levels of the residual sugar, of the pH, the acidity. The acidity is change in a really short time, and so the harvest. It's very difficult to find the right way to start the harvest, because of course the climate change every year.
Yes, and as someone who travels to Italy often, I can tell the difference in the summers every year. And when I'm there, the headlines will always be hottest summer in Italy on record. But now this is happening every year. And then,
Yeah,
of course, in Emilia-Romagna, unfortunately, I think
yeah,
the last time I was there was
yeah,
early October, there was flooding, and there
yeah,
had been flooding before. So the recent flooding that's been
yeah.
happening in your region, does that ever affect your part of Emilia-Romagna, or has that affected your part of the wine region at all?
Fortunately for us, it's different because we are on the top of the hill, and so nothing happened. So for our resort and for our farm, but in Romagna, so in a seaside, and in the north of Modena, in a fat plan, of course, destroy a lot of hectares of vineyards.
Yes, because if I remember correctly, I had left Opera Zero Due and then I was driving
Hmm.
towards Le Marche. And so I would have been on the autostrada through Romagna. And I remember even seeing the vines from the autostrada thinking, oh my gosh, this is just horrible. And
Yeah,
but these are the realities, just like as someone, I live in Florida, hurricanes are threats. It's like a new
yeah,
reality. And
yeah.
Italy and its wine regions they have to adjust to this. So, but hopefully your side is always protected, like you said, being on top of that beautiful hill. Okay, so you talked about your wines, and
Hmm.
of course, because you have the amazing restaurant, and I've tried the menu, all different combinations, of course. So when we think about if you were there, as you've told me before other times when I visited, what would be some of the best pairings with your food and your wines? Like, what would you recommend?
Lambrusco, like I told you before, is the sparkling red. So you can start in aperitif like Parmesan cheese and Parma ham, and it's fantastic, of course, fantastic product from our region. And so it's perfect with Lambrusco, and continues with tortellini, our traditional dishes of Emilia-Romagna. And so this, for me, is the best pairing for our region, for our food, and our Lambrusco. But at the same time, Lambrusco is very fantastic wine, because you can pour Lambrusco with different cuisine, different kitchen from American product like so hamburger or crispy duck rolls. So for me, it's a fantastic combination. And when I travel into United States and I try different food with Lambrusco pairing is a fantastic. It's amazing because Lambrusco is a fantastic with very different kind of dishes, not only for our region, but Asian and American. So it's fantastic.
Yes, we would call it very versatile because it can
Yeah,
go well with so many different dishes. And it's something, as a wine drinker, I like Lambrusco, especially because it's lighter, you know,
yeah.
and
Another point.
yes, because when I'm in Italy in the summer, as I probably have lamented many times, when I'm there, it's very hot and sometimes very tannic wines. To me, it's just they're too heavy and I prefer
To
something
having.
light. Such like that's why Lambrusco is always a perfect fit because of, and then of course it's also chilled, which makes it even better. So that's great. And so then would you say overall for the Emilia-Romagna region, would like tortellini be your favorite regional food? Or because when we think of everything, like I just always think of mortadella, I think of,
Yeah.
Parmigiano Reggiano. Basically, it's like a love affair with food in that region. So what would be your favorite regional food?
For me, Emilia-Romagna is a fantastic region for the food, and because a lot of products from Italy is made in Emilia-Romagna. So you can imagine balsamic vinegar, Parma ham, Parmesan cheese. So all the product, tortellini, mortadella, of course, mortadella more in Bologna, but of course it's fantastic. Culatello. So a lot
Mm.
of foods come from Emilia Romagna, and right now, thanks to Bottura, maybe Emilia Romagna is fantastic region to visit, and because at the beginning. The American people, they know only Tuscany and Piedmont, Rome and Venice. And right now, Emilia-Romagna start to be a fantastic region to visit for the food, for the cars, for the fast cars. Because you mentioned Ferrari, so we are very close. We are only for 3 miles to Maranello, so we know very well.
Yes, I remember one day walking, one of the path that leads to the resort, and I could hear the
You
Ferrari
can hear,
engines on the test track, and I was like, wow, all these years I had not heard that.
yes,
And I will say, as someone who travels there frequently, that before I didn't see as many American tourists in that region because usually, as you had mentioned, Rome, Venice, Florence, and those
yeah,
are places now I avoid because of over tourism. But for me, I wanted things off the beaten path, but I've noticed that people have discovered that region, which is great because
yeah,
there's just so much to see in central Italy, and that's why that's great. Now, of course, you've mentioned balsamic vinegar. So, Opera
yeah,
Zero Due, for the listener, is very well known for Lambrusco. It has the resort that I mentioned that I stay in frequently because I just love the
yeah.
view and the staff. But then the balsamic vinegar that you have, like your acetaya, can you tell us about
Yeah,
how you had entered into balsamic vinegar in that world?
yeah. Of course, Modena is famous for its traditional balsamic vinegar, and many families like mine have produced it for generations. So we produce vinegar for own consumption, and it was my great great grandmother who started the first set of barrels just after the Second War, and of course the tradition passed to my grandfather, to my father, and then to me. And we produce traditional vinegar of Modena. So means it's very different from the balsamic vinegar you find in the supermarket. And the traditional vinegar it's made with just one ingredient, cooked grape juice. And we wait at least 12 years and not 12 hours like the industrial product for become the traditional vinegar of Modena.
Yes, and that's one of the highlights of the resort because I remember walking to the rooms and then you can
Yeah.
always even have that aroma. And of course, the special events that, I've attended many events that have centered around the acciaia and such and its traditions. Now, as American tourists probably don't know more
Hmm.
about balsamic vinegar. So
Yeah.
when people come to visit, what's probably the main thing that you say about, because I know you mentioned how yours is, and of course because it's a family tradition, it's very
Yeah.
different from the industrial ones that are of course sold in the
Hmm.
supermarkets. So what do you usually say to them to highlight how special your balsamic vinegar is?
Be careful because it's not only balsamic vinegar. In Emilia-Romagna, we use only the traditional vinegar, and it's very complex flavors because the set is composed of 5, 6 barrels of different kind of woods, and so at the end, flavors is really complex and deep, and just a few drops on the top of, for example, in on the Parmesan cheese, it's amazing for understand the traditional vinegar. The industrial product, unfortunately, is industrial product, and they can use, how can I say, very chemical product, and they take out water with machine, and so in a couple of hours they produce the balsamic vinegar, and is flat. I can't recognize the flavors of the from the wood, and so this is for me. And of course, we teach them to understand the real flavors about the traditional vinegar. So from the barrels, the tourists they can smell directly to the small barrel about this really special flavor.
Yes, I would agree because that's knowing the authentic side of Italy. Because, as I've mentioned before, especially flocking to Rome, Florence, and Venice, there's this other side of Italy that exists. And of course, we're talking about Sicilia. Most people probably don't even know about Stromboli. But if they're visiting your area, it's why it's so important to know about the traditions. And, as we've mentioned, like the gastronomic powerhouse that exists, because what's usually marketed here is, like you've mentioned, the industrial part, but it's important for tourists to know these traditions. And that's what makes visiting all of the different Italian winemakers and, of course, these different cantine, the acciatai, everything so important. It's for authenticity, and that's what you provide to people visiting. So, again, about the American market, because I know that you've been to America a few times. And
Hmm.
so, when we talk about your Lambrusco, and of course, I mean, it can be found in Italy and I'm sure in other parts of Europe. So, what are your goals for the American market with Lambrusco?
I started in maybe more than 10 years, maybe, yeah, 13 years in New York City, thanks to my old winemaker, like a teacher. It's quite famous for the very famous Tuscany wine. It's Luca da Toma, so he's quite famous here in Italy. And thanks to him, I met journalist and the first my buyer, and so I start to United States many years ago. Of course, with a small quantity, but right now I'm very happy because the market understand this new concept, and of course this concept and different price because of course my Lambrusco is not so cheap. It's not expensive like Barolo, but it's, in the world of Lambrusco, it's just a little bit expensive, and I recognize the real characteristic of Lambrusco, and so thanks to United States, thanks to New York, I start this fantastic opportunity in this market, and right now, told you before, it's our main market. We sell more than 40,000 right now only in New York, and in the main city in the States, so LA, Austin. in Massachusetts, in Boston. And of course, the fantastic, I think the goal is it's not so expensive wine because in the restaurant you can find our Lambrusco around $45-50 right now. And so you can enjoy the dinner and the dishes with a good and organic Lambrusco and enjoy the night because of course the Lambrusco is not the principal object. Is a fantastic way to enjoy the night with friends, with someone you can want to stay. And of course, like I told you before, Lambrusco is sparkling red, and so from the beginning to the end, you can enjoy the Lambrusco.
Oh, yes. And it's like one of my favored wines because, again, as I've mentioned before, it's one of the easier to drink. Of course, the price point is
Exactly.
great. And that's
Hmm.
the thing, as an American, it's interesting how, as you mentioned, like Lambrusco, the reputation has changed because I can tell you
Yeah,
from, I mean,
I know,
not
I
to
know,
give
I
my
know, I
age
know
away.
exactly. I know. And so this is the point because I started this project because I know in the past Lambrusco had a bad reputation. And so it's not correct because, of course, there are many, not many, but farms like me, they promote the high quality of Lambrusco. And so you can have in the market the very cheap Lambrusco in the industrial philosophy and the high quality Lambrusco.
Yes, and that's the goal, is to the high quality part. And as I've always said about, because since I'm an educator in two senses, for school and then with wine, I think it's always, especially with Italian wine, it's the educating consumers about all of the possibilities out there. Because anyone around my age, not to give that away, early 40s, we would have known the older version, the very
Yeah,
super syrupy sweet, very light and fun, found at the bottom shelf at the supermarket. But
yeah,
then the exposure to, of course, like your winemaking and then some of the other smaller producers trying to elevate that reputation. And
exactly.
that's the Italian wine industry in general. It's all about, because people will know, as some, going to restaurants, the three B's, of course, Barbaresco, Barolo, and Brunello di Montalcino, but not
Hmm.
all Italian wine is that. And that's was the goal of being an educator, is trying to expose other people to, all of the different grape varieties. So then when you think about Opera Zero Due and then even its future in Italy itself, like what do you envision? Because of course in 2002 you had
Hmm.
envisioned, producing Lambrusco, of course your wine resort, and then the balsamic vinegar. So what do you think about the future for Opera Zero Due?
We just start to open a Opera 25 in New York City. No, I'm joking.
Oh, okay. I'm on a plane.
For the future of Opera Zero Two, we have four more rooms because in the agritourism rules we can have a maximum 12 rooms. So we have only eight, and so in the next January we open the new four rooms in the resort. And the new project for the wine for Lambrusco is for me is really really new project. And the next week I will go in New York City to show to my distributors. It's Lambrusco, the premium Lambrusco in a can. And this is very strange because the bad reputation starting in a Lambrusco can. But at the same time, I want to change this concept. And so I want to fill the can with a premium Lambrusco. And of course, the can is 100% recycled aluminum, so it's not heavy like the bottle of the wine. And so for me, and I'm very close to the nature and to the new organic, new philosophy. And so I want to change this concept about Lambrusco in a can. And so I want to put my Lambrusco in a can.
Very interesting. I think
Yeah.
I've seen this concept, I think even with like Aperol with the spritz, like a
Hmm.
spritz being available in a can. And I think especially with younger generations, there's that different. vibe of the can that makes it accessible. So that's really interesting. That's
Yeah,
very
this
interesting. In bocca
is
al lupo.
Viva il lupo.
See, now as well, because of course, when I visited Opera Zero Due over the many years, I've also attended so many different types of events that I found very interesting because I would notice people would come from all over the region. And of course, I remember one time being there after my little hospital stay that I had a few years ago, that there were even like the doctors from Bagiovara had come to Opera Zero
Mhm.
Due for an event. So can you tell us about some of the special events that take place at Opera Zero Due?
Of course, in opera, we have different kind of events. Our customer are from Ferrari and from Lamborghini, from Maserati and Ducati, so all the Motor Valley, from Motor Valley. And of course, we have different, very special and very VIP person comes in our place, Ferrari owners. So it's a fantastic place to enjoy and meet very different people.
Yes, because I remember when I was there the last time, I think there was a Maserati dinner. And then last
Mhm.
summer, so it would have been a few months before, I remember coming to the resort and being dropped off by Claudio and
Mhm.
noticing like there were probably 15 Ferrari cars parked in front. So that's what I always think of. I think of, like you said, Ducati, Lamborghini, like traditional Emilia-Romagna experience there with food, wine, and of course, just the experience and the views. Now, we do have a question about who your importer is in New York. So, can you
Mhm.
share that?
In New York, I have Kerr Wine, and Eric Lemons is the owner. Fantastic guys. We have the same age, more or less. He is younger than me, 2, 3 years. And Regal. I have two importers, two distributors
Okay, that's good to know.
in New York.
Perfect. And of course, eventually, maybe it'll make its way to Florida. Who knows? Miami could be your next city to focus on. Just kidding. But
Unfortunately, not not yet.
okay. And then we have another question about with the can, like who would be,
Mhm.
which company would you be working with for the can?
I use my Lambrusco, and I use a very small. I don't remember exactly the name. It's Canning Italy, and so they bottling, they canning. I don't know exactly in English the name exactly.
Okay. And then would they go through
Um,
the same importer?
I hope too,
Okay.
because next week I go there for present the new project.
Okay. So to be
For sure.
determined, John. That was a question from John, whom I know
Okay.
from also one of the events from the Italian wine world. And we
Yeah.
have another commenter who really loves the idea of the can. So I think this is something
Hmm.
really new and interesting for Lambrusco. So of course
Yeah.
we all wish you great luck.
It's quite strong, but for me, it's really interesting, and I want to start very soon.
Perfect. And so then overall, because of course we've talked about all the different aspects of your region. So the takeaway of Emilia Romagna itself, because what's interesting is my connection to Emilia Romagna was simply because I had visited the Ferrari Museum, because of course I
Hmm.
love everything Italian brands. And then I was sent to your wine resort as a recommendation. And then from there, that's when I started to explore more of the region and got to know it very well, including the hospital system, as we know. But usually, for someone like myself, of course, I was always sticking to Sicilia and then Campania for personal
Hmm.
connections. So, if you were to speak to an American or another, like maybe from a tourist from another part of Europe, to say why Emilia Romagna, what would you
Hmm.
say like is why people should come to your region?
For me, Emilia Romagna means Emilian people. So Emilian people makes Emilia Romagna so special. You know Bottura, no? The crazy skinny chef, the crazy. So we enjoy the life. We start drinking Lambrusco at 5 years old with our grandparents and continues our whole lives. And so, and the cuisine and the wine for me give us the energy and the inspiration. And so we create the Ferrari and Maserati cars. And so the Emilia-Romagna is right now it's very famous for fast cars and slow food. And so for me, it's so special for the people because we enjoy the life a lot.
Oh, yes. And I think that's
And
part of
maybe
my
because
appeal.
Lambrusco is so friendly wine, and so we have a lot of parties, and so we drink a lot of Lambrusco.
Yes, and I think that's what the appeal is overall, because Emilia-Romagna is different, but yet so popular for all the different aspects. And, of course, I'm very partial to Sicilian Campagna, but for me, I could even eventually see, because like staying in Emilia-Romagna for longer terms because of all of the things that you had just mentioned. And then Hugh, one of our listeners, he was even saying, because this is what I was thinking about when you were talking about the can, is that
Hmm.
it will appeal to older millennial. I'm an elder millennial, I think, as you are as well, but it would appeal to millennials in general and then the next
Yeah,
generation with Gen
yeah,
Z, and to
yeah.
get it here before
Gen
Labor
Z.
Day. So,
Yeah.
do we have any other questions for Mattia, our wonderful guest? Because I think he told us everything about Emilia-Romagna, his wines, balsamic vinegar, the appeal of Lambrusco, because I always look forward to Lambrusco. I'll be there in April again, so I'll be able to have it more. And then John is asking about, so for your, I assume, John, this has to deal with the vineyards itself,
Yeah.
because I know you talked about, like, well, of course in Italian they say bio, but like the
Yeah.
organic, like, so it's, you have the organic and then sustainable farming. Is
Yeah,
that like,
sure. See,
and
yes, it's 20 years I work in organic farming. And also last year I complete the project so for the panel solar panel, and so I'm totally independent from the energy for because I'm very close to the green system.
oh yes, that's right, I did notice that with the solar panels.
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
Yeah, very interesting. So yes, the
yeah,
future for opera is very bright, secondo me,
yeah.
of course, and of course to everyone else. So if we do we have any other questions? Because again, thank you so much for sharing everything about opera today. We look forward to learning more in the future about your wines and of course tasting the amazing food and exploring more of Emilia-Romagna.
So, if you guys are good, I think this is a wrap actually. It was a very interesting and lovely conversation. Very fun, love the ideas, see a lot of innovative projects coming up next with a lot
Hmm.
of appeal and interest. So, I really wish you the best, Mattia. It's been incredible getting to know about your winery and your reality and your projects today. So, I'm very much glad. Thank you, Julie, for bringing him with us today.
Of course, thank you. Grazie mille,
Thank
Mattia.
you. Grazie a voi.
Thank you, everyone.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.